Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to your comic for the evening, Sanja Kian.
Oh my God! Thank you very much. Thanks for that warm introduction. And we're gonna shut this door. It's getting too cold for me. Thank you for that funny introduction. Let's get right into it. I want to talk with you about fatherhood. I've done it for a few decades. Does that make me qualified? No. Do we look? We've had children for 200. Not we, but humans have had children for 250,000 years. And I think it's in our DNA. Do people need to be qualified to be parents? Yes, absolutely. They need some common sense. Are you a parent?
I am a parent.
Do you know how I guessed it? You just look tired. You look tired. And broke. Are you a parent?
You're a silly parent.
See, that's the best way to do it. You just look wise. I knew it. And it's particularly tricky when you're doing co-parenting. So they stay with me for a week, then they go to their mother for a week, then they come back, and I have to undo all her good parenting. And then I want to do other stuff with life. So I want to travel more, but it's tricky until they're older a little bit, right? So they go to university or prison. But why? I've been traveling. I left them on their own. I've been traveling recently. And I went to this bar. I was sitting there having a drink. And this guy comes and sits next to me. And he says, what the hell is going on? And he says, where are you from? Hello, where are you from? It's just some menacing accent. And I said, Afghanistan. And he looks at me, I swear to God, this is what he does. He says, Osama bin Laden, bomb, boom. I look at him and I was like, in disbelief. I look at him in disbelief. I'm like, what the fuck, man? How did you know? You know, I make bombs. No, I don't mean like that. I used to make bombs. No, actually, as a child, it was my hobby to make bombs. So, it's not dangerous. You think, oh God, it's dangerous. It's not. It's one of those things. It's not dangerous until it is, like my ex-wife. And so I tell this story to my boys, and I'm like, I was in this bar and this motherfucker came up. And then the little one looks at me and he's like, you said bomb? I said, yeah. He's like, is there, let me see how I can put it. Is there any way you can teach me how to make one? I'm like, oh, I'm a good parent. I said, yes. But you have to really use the situation to your advantage. So I said, well, if you wash the dishes for a week and clean your room, not much to ask. Anyways, this bastard didn't do any of it. He was on me. So he went to the second best source of information, teacher, and asked his teacher, teacher, how do I make bomb? And the teacher said, I don't know. And then the teacher found some schematic in his drawer, ammonium nitrate, potassium chloride, and then he took one look at it, and then give me a call. So I go to school, and he presents me with this piece of paper, and he's like, we found this. What do you think this is? And I look at it, and I'm like, it's half-assed attempt at making a bomb. And then he said, well, we found this in Felix's books. I was like, yes, my boy is growing up. And the teacher looks at me and he says, we're really concerned about his imaginations and what you talk about. I'll have a sip of beer and let you realize the gravity of what the teacher said. What they're saying is, we want to know what you talk about in the privacy of your home and what you think. And at this moment, I realize behind this motherfucker is a Batman with a chainsaw. And there's blood, and it's like, what about that? And the guy says, oh, we are not concerned about those people. Right? And I was like, you know, you might have this feeling that did this really happen? Yes, of course it fucking happened. That's what I'm telling you. And you'd be like, whoa, racism. But I do think, you know what? I don't think you need to worry about white people and their imaginations. But I do say Afghans get a bad rep for terrorism because of all of their terrorists. But I think it's in our nature, because we're tribal creatures, it's in our nature to kind of be us and them. Right? Like the Afghans have, you know, they're misogynistic and they have successfully implemented the worst gender apartheid of the 21st century. But at the same time, some of them run away from it to get a better life. And those ones in Afghanistan are called pussies. And you know, when I said I don't know which one will go to prison, which one will go to university, I lied. You know which one. I'm joking, they're both going to prison. You know, when I came here on a visa, one of the questions on the visa form was this, but they ask you so many stupid questions. One of the questions, question 46, was, have you ever plotted or carried out a terrorist activity? I swear God, this was the question. And my response to it was, I only sell my bombs. I'm an entrepreneur, just like this country. And then question 69, which sounds like a sexy thing, which isn't, was, have you ever incited, engaged, or carried out genocide? I looked at it and I was like, no, but the night is young. And what was I gonna say? You know, to be honest, like, I didn't fucking make bombs and shit. You know, I built schools for girls to go to. But that doesn't make a good story. I think you have to be like a role model to your kids and just tell them what to do with their lives. And I think if I just tell them that, you know, I built school, I lose a lot of street cred. I told the little one the other day, oh, let's go to the library. A friend's got a new job. He's like, library? Where are the books on? Nerd. If I tell him that I built school, I'm not. He once asked me, so what was it like in the Second World War? I was like, I fucking wasn't there. He's like, what have you done with your life? So, you know, I gotta tell them a good story. But also, like, as you get fucking old, you become like there are new things. There's like fucking cutlery, indoor toilets, and feminism. I'm lost. And my kind of starting point is like back in the day, back in my day, this is how we did it. And I know it sounds like an old person thing. The other day, my son, he came over and he said, can I please have some breakfast? And he's so sweet. Can I please have some breakfast? Well, then go crack some eggs and have an omelette. He said, but it burns my fingers. And I said, come in. All right, here's a little camera.
Sorry, I'm late.
Got lost? He does look like a parent.
Yeah.
Took him a long time to get here.
I'm here.
I'm glad you're here. So, where was I? Yeah, so he said, oh, can I have some breakfast? And then let me crack some eggs. Oh, no, go and crack some eggs and have some breakfast. And he said, but it burns my fingers. And this was the right opportunity for back in the day. And I said, all right, back in the day, when I was your age, I was 15, I was in the trenches and I was crawling around, and this one night, it was cold and miserable, and the moon was waxing, and everybody was shivering, and it was snow and dust storm. All right, I made a lot of it up, but most of it is true. But, and then there was a war, and I was in the middle of it. And then I heard a missile going right above my head and struck a building. And then we were given this thing that you have to look after civilians, fucking civilians. They always get in the way. And then I climbed out because I knew who lived in that building. I climbed out of the trenches, went in there, got upstairs, and it had struck in their bedroom. Big pile of bricks in the middle of the room. There is smoke, there is gunpowder, there is screaming. And I go and I pull this woman out of the rubbles, and she says, my baby! And I said, you don't have a baby, you're in shock. And she says, no, I was pregnant. I said, no, you're in shock, you weren't pregnant. And she was actually. And the shockwave has caused a premature birth. And there's a baby. So I pull this woman, and there is the baby with the umbilical cord, and the baby is eating the placenta. It's a horror scene. I pulled her out, took her downstairs, and put her in the cellar, and I said, I've got to go outside now. And that's what I did when I was 15. He looks at me, and he says, I'm so sorry. I'm not hungry anymore, I've lost my appetite. I'm gonna go to my room and think about the choices I've made. I said, last one, come and give me some kisses. Mwah, mwah, mwah. And I gave him 3 kisses. And then he went. And I had a friend over. And she said, that was nuts. I was like, right? No, wait, which bed? The breakfast bed or the missile bed? She's like, no, you had a nut problem. It was a nut problem, and you brought a fucking sledgehammer. It wasn't, you traumatized it. And this is what I was gonna say, that people who don't have children, they always like to give advice to people who have children. You know, like this whole children thing, I fucking successfully avoided it for years. You know, I lost many good friends to children. A few of them to war, but mostly to children. At the age of 16, that's when you have children in Afghanistan. Well, that's if you're a boy and you have children. For a girl, it's 14. I mostly did it by kind of, you know, staying away from my cousins. But, you know, it wasn't that hard. They were like, no, they weren't. They're just fucking hairy. We're very hairy people, look at me. And then they're not allowed to shave their beard until they're 20. So, and then I came here and I realized, oh, white women are not so interested in having children. in their 20s. Thanks God, they lack any common sense. They shouldn't have children. And then, the moment they turn 30, this is where I was right. They just want, that's the only thing they think about. I want to have children. And it's like, oh, I think I'm gonna freeze my eggs to have it later. Half the time I'm fucking lost if we're talking about omelets or we're talking about babies. And it's my time is up, but I was gonna leave you with some thought. Yeah, well, you come on time. That will teach you a lesson. I don't know. Oh, you know what? Here is a thought that I'll leave you with. It's a lot of life is kind of improvised like this. And I just like to wing it all along. But the only thing that I sometimes wonder and hesitate and pause if I'm doing it right is fathering. And it's just like one of those things. And what is important about it? And it took me a long time to realize what was important until the other day that my son said something and that really bothered me. And I was like, why does it bother me so much? And then I thought more about it and I realized that it comes from his mother. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not talking shit about his mother. But what I'm saying is that, it bothered me that he parroted another opinion. And what, the only thing that I want to give them is to have their own thought, independent thought. I guess we all kind of need to. And I hope you're going to think about that. All right. Have a lovely evening, and I'll see you shortly. Bye-bye.